Okay, hello everybody. This is Todd from Table Ready Painting. We are here today on a new journey. Of course, if anybody hasn't known, we are looking at the new 11th edition rules. Obviously, they just kind of put them up just a couple days ago. Let me double check that. That was June 1st. So just a couple days ago. So it's the 4th. But I wanted to go through some of the information. To be honest with you, and I'm just sharing this with you guys now. Like, this is my first time actually sitting down and reading it. So I figured we'd do kind of a dive together with it and see what we came up with. So obviously, this is a Games Workshop product. They have included tons of pictures and information here that we're going to try and skip over a little bit on, because we're looking at a solid 88 pages right now, and I think that's a little ridiculous. But at first marker here, what I wanted to do was just kind of show you what's going on here. Let me jump here real quick. And let me fix this real quick. So the first thing that I did do, I finally did order my miniature of the year. So this is this Eldar model, Infinity's Lament. Still in the plastic. Just got it yesterday. Very surprised because I did order it over the weekend and I already got it. So super thrilled about that. And I'm going to get that apart and get that built in a little bit of time. Anybody that has been paying attention, I have not got a lot of painting done this week. Last week, of course, I did those Cankerborn from the Deepwater Warhammer Quest box set. Had a lot of fun. Got all those done, painted on screen and on camera here. Really got a lot of fun painting those up. I got a lot of models to paint in that. I don't know if it's going to get done before 11th edition comes out, but I'm sure going to keep up on it over the next week or so. I do have. So this week I really started with last night particular, yesterday and today I was at training for my day job. So that takes a lot of drive time. It's about an hour and a half away. It kind of keeps me really busy. And then the nights have been kind of rough. Last night I was on the Inflatable Falcon, talking Star Wars stuff with Ken, who's one of the hosts there, who is also my co-host for Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy. Their other co-host, Mike, was out on a special mission. And so him and I and Anthony, who is a stormtrooper, not in real life, but the way he talks pretty much. So we did have a great conversation about the Maul Shadow Lord, and we talked about the Mandalorian Grogu movie. So a lot of fun there. If you're interested in that, you can go check them out. That is on Hinton Star Wars Family. You can check that episode out, and I'm sure they'll add on to that as they go. So, but what I'm going to do here, I just want to kind of roll through some of the things that I'm looking for. See if I can just pick out some changes, stuff like that. And another thing, in case you don't know, I don't really care for the rumors and spoilers. I know I've said it a dozen times in the last couple months. I'm really not into the spoilers and stuff like that. So what I tend to do is, okay, this is coming out. Okay, what's in it? I push everything aside. So now that the rules are actually out, I do want to actually dive into what I see in the rules. And I figured I'd kind of jump on here. I'm sure there's hundreds of YouTube channels and podcasts and whatever that have gone over this. And this is more of an initial reaction than it is like a deep dive. So just to get into that, let's bring that screen up on here. All right. I'm going to bring this up so I can go back and forth with it. So, course, first page, core rules, all this, in the grim darkness of the far future, humanity teeters on the brink of extinction. There's a lot of stuff that you see in this in every edition. The pictures are, again, new pictures, beautiful, some Imperial Fists, Blade Guard vets. Ooh, that name just got away from me. So this time I'm impressed. I'm looking at the rules as it stands here. They have the basic rules. They have battle round. They have battlefield tactics. They actually included advanced rules, which they haven't included in any of the free rule sets up to this point. And then they do have some reference as far as core abilities and a rule appendix and stuff like that. And again, haven't really looked at it, so I'm going to tell you in a few minutes what exactly we find. There is a lot of neat art, some AdMech there fighting Chaos Space Marines. An introduction, same thing, 2 people playing Warhammer. And of course, they do have the information for the app on here. And that's, I guess the app is not going to change like they did between 9th and 10th. So I'm very glad for that because I don't really want to change everything over. Again, more artwork, or not artwork, but model dioramas, fight scenes. They do have, some blood angels, and it looks like they're fighting some Tyranids on there. Basic rules. Again, this was either a different angle or different campaign here. It all works out the same. Blood angels and Tyranids. Basic stuff here. We're going to kind of go through some of this. Obviously, active and opposing player, just kind of breaking down some of the rules. You're going to measure the distances. We're still working in inches. Dice rolls are the same. Leadership. To make a leadership roll, the controlling player rolls 2d6. If the result is equal to or greater than the number of the leadership characteristic, that roll succeeds. Otherwise, the roll fails. Same basic stuff. Battle Shock. Not a lot's changed in Battle Shock. If to make a Battle Shock roll, you roll your leadership. If it passed, then you're clear. If it fails, you become battle shocked. And of course, if you're battle shocked, your OC goes to dash and not 0, which is interesting. And then it's controlling player target cannot use stratagems, and you're not eligible to start an action. And any action that you started, of course, cannot be completed. All right. Now they're going to explain data sheets, and I don't know that anything here has really changed. Same kind of thing: move, toughness, save, invulnerable save, wounds, leadership, objective control, weapons, range, attacks, ballistic skill, weapon skill, which is still representative of 4+ to hit, or 3+ to hit, or whatever. So nothing's really changed there. Armor penetration is kind of the same. Damage is the same. Nothing that I'm really picking up on. Some of the rules into infantry. More disclaimers as to how the rules are linked and keywords and stuff like that. Unit composition and other rules. Again, section details the number of types of models in that unit. Each of these can be set to default war gear, which will be listed. It may also list other rules, such as which units a leader can join, or which ones can embark within a transport. All right. And then they have some links to some other things that you might need, which is kind of handy. I do like that they have pages there. And then they lay out the rules, what's on a data sheet. So, and of course, data sheets, if you played 10th edition, it's pretty much the same thing. All your stats up here, 6, 5, 5, move, toughness, save, wounds, leadership, and OC. Of course, your knob in this case is different, only by it has 2 wounds. And then all your weapons on there. So nothing super exciting. Of course, rules for moving. That's your maximum distance or setup distance. So it can be moved through friendly models. It can be moved through spaces. Its base can fit through. Its base cannot be moved through enemy models. Its base cannot cross the edge of the battlefield. And all stated while moving conditions must be met. I'm sure we'll get into that specifically. Moving a model in a straight line. Each time you move a model in a straight line, move it horizontally across the battlefield. Okay. Rotating the model. Each time you rotate a model, it may turn any amount around the center of its base while keeping it upright, though the rotating model does not move towards the distance, does not count towards the move distance. Okay, so in 10th edition, they did a little bit in there where tanks lost 2 inches when they were turning. It looks like they kind of deleted that. We'll see more properly as we get to tanks, just to see if there's something changed. It looks like pretty cut and dry here, but once we get into advanced rules, maybe that'll change. After you've finished setting up all the models in a unit and or moving all the models that you want to move, check that all of these apply. Make sure you're in squad coherency, which they reference for later, and we'll get into that then. No model in that unit no model in that unit are on a model or partway through the surface of the terrain feature, and all stated after moving conditions are met. In other words, I'm sure like wobbly model syndrome and stuff like that. If one or more of the conditions are not met, that unit cannot make that move, and its models are returned to the position that they started at the start of the move. Otherwise, after resolving any additional rules stated in the after moving section of that unit. A couple things they reference here: moving in straight lines. So 6-inch move, you can move 3 inches, then 3 inches, or 3 inches, then 3 inches for a 6-inch move. When it comes to rotating, this model has a distance of move of 12. It makes a move through a straight line and rotates as follows. So it would move 6 inches in a straight line, then rotates, and then moves 6 inches in a straight line, and then rotates. So pretty basic stuff. Models without a base are rotated around their central axis. So I think they just kind of cleared that up just so we didn't have janky movements anymore. And I'm fine with that. Rules for setup. Obviously, you got to be in coherency. You have to set up unengaged, and all the restrictions are met. So I'm sure that leads into deep striking and stuff like that. Coherency, 2 inches horizontally, so across, 5 inches vertically, or at least one other model of at least one other model, or within 9 inches horizontally, 5 inches vertically of every other model in that unit. Okay, so Okay, so you can spread out a little bit more, and I'd like to play around with this because if a squad is, they're saying within 2 inches horizontally, so and 5 vertically of at least one other model, and within 9 inches horizontally of every other model in that unit. I wonder how tight that's going to be when you get into like 20-man squads or something like that. That's going to be an interesting thing. We're going to have to try that out, and I'll let you know specifically how that works. Because the old rules were you had to be, if you were five-man models, you had to be within 2 inches of another model, and if you were more than 5 models, you had to be within 2 inches of 2 models in 10th edition. So this looks like a little more crowdy. Because overall, if you think about it, you're only going to be 9 inches apart from here to here, give or take. I don't know. Do I have a tape measure here? Not within reach. All right. So within 9 inches, so you got to have all your models within a 9-inch circle. So bigger squads are actually going to be pretty tight. I think that's okay. I guess it gets rid of the lines of infantry and stuff like that. Like it, don't like it. I don't know. I'm really going to have to play that out and see how it works. It does give the squads more of a, group together feeling rather than taking one big long screen. Because even in 10th edition, you could daisy chain your squads out as long as you kept. Yeah, see that's what I was thinking. 20-man squads, blobs are going to be pretty tight in that bubble. And I mean, really, if you get into some of the bigger ones, and of course, I'll have to look into those rules specifically once I get there. If we can still do bigger squads with like the Imperial Guardsmen or something like that, where you can include command squads as well as your bigger squads, that might be even tighter. So, again, that's something that I'm going to have to kind of lay out and see what works and what doesn't work. Luckily, I have Logan's got Tyranids, I've got Imperial Guard, and we'll kind of put them on the table and see how they feel out. And by the way, hi, Jeff. Thanks for coming and seeing us. So engagement range is, yeah, okay. So he just put 20-man Blood Claws pack on his desk. It's pretty tight. Yeah, I could see that. It's going to be tight, especially at Marine size. Everything else, engagement range only 2 inches instead of 3 inches. That's okay. Oh, I lost my page here. So that'll be fine. And of course, they give you some diagrams here to kind of add up to it. Making attacks. So I don't think a whole lot has changed in here, at least not that I know of. For each model in the attacking unit, select which weapon that model will attack with. Models within range and ranged weapons, melee attacks. All right. Obviously, you can select one or more range units while you're shooting, and you must select one melee weapon that model has while fighting in close combat. That seems pretty standard. Selecting targets while shooting. Select one enemy unit that has to be in target of the weapon unless otherwise stated. Target must be visible to the model that has the weapon and within range of that weapon, and has to be unengaged. So visible to that model. So that unit has to be visible to the model. Okay. So if you got guys hiding behind a building or behind a wall, it has to be visible to that model, not that unit. Resolve attacks, select enemy units, gather your attack dice, Obviously, for each attack, you roll a die. If one or more of the weapons targeting the unit makes an identical attack with the selected weapon, obviously you can roll dice together. Resolve your dice. Resolve the attack sequence for all the attack dice. Follow the first instructions below. It says if there are any weapons targeting the same unit that have not yet been used to make attacks, return to the gather attack dice step. All right. Otherwise, if there are weapons with unresolved attacks targeting a different unit, return to the select enemy unit. Otherwise, if all weapons have been used to make all of their attacks, this sequence ends. Okay, so that's just explaining splitting fire or not splitting fire, stuff like that. It does pretty much shovel out that, you know, if you can't see something and you kill all the guys that are visible, there is a possibility that you won't be able to shoot them after with your follow-up weapon. At least that's how I'm reading it. Identical attacks are those of the same ballistic skill, weapon skill, strength, AP, and D characteristics, and that which are affected by same applicable abilities and rules. Okay, that's obvious. And splitting melee attacks while selecting targets. If you select more than one unit as the target of your melee weapon, you must split that weapon's attacks between those target units. To do so, declare how many weapon attacks will be made against each unit, and then in your gather attack dice for each weapon of that splitting its attacks, only gather the attack dice for the ones you're attacking. Not a lot's changed there. I think they changed the wording on that. Attack sequence. So you're going to make hit rolls. So unmodified ones always fail. Unmodified sixes always critical hit. Equal to or greater the ballistic skill. Weapon skill is a hit. Anything other than that is a fail. Same with wound rolls. Unmodified 1 is a fail. Unmodified 6 is critical wound. Equal to or greater the required result. And they go into the explanation there. And this is kind of just the same as it always was. 4+ on equal strength. Greater but not double. Or either way, shifts the die one way or the other. And of course, anything other than a successful is a failure. So it's pretty interesting the way they worded that. Anything that I like that. Any other result is a fail. So that means if you do not make it, you fail. And though that seems pretty simple, that's a very strong rules explanation. All right, so save rolls. Create your groups. Divide all models in this target into following groups. One group for each character model. One group for all the models with the same wounds, save, and invulnerable saves. And then allocate your order. So allocate your order. If non-character groups that contain a model that has lost one or more wounds, that group must be the first allocation. Very good. No character group can be earlier in the allocation order than a non-character group. I'm sure something like precision or something like that would change that, but we'll just pretend that doesn't exist at this point. Character groups containing a model that has lost one or more wounds must be the earliest allocation. And then, of course, you make your saves. The opposing player makes one save roll for each attack that wounded the target on a die 6. Inflicting damage. I don't think anything's changed here either. Opposing players resolve the following sequence for each save roll, working from the lowest result to the highest result until all resolved or all models in the target unit are destroyed. So there's an interesting wording. Right here, resolving sequence from the lowest results to the highest results. Interesting. And I think that might be played around with as we move forward in the edition. Because I could see people saying, oh, I want to take out these guys because it's an easier save. But according to this, the lowest result would go first. Sorry, just rereading it, just so it makes sense. Okay, so unmodified 1 automatically inflicts damage. And vulnerable save, the model in the current allocation has the in-save characteristic, and the result is equal to or greater than that characteristic. The attack fails. Okay, they go the other way around. The save in AP after modified results. If you roll better than the save at the end, it fails to inflict damage, and then any other result inflicts damage. Okay, then you resolve your damage. All right, so then they go through a couple of sequence examples, and I'm not going to go through all that. You guys can gladly read that on your own. There's some cool different schematics there. All right, so and it says other concepts. So this, I think, is where some of the interesting parts are going to lay out. The section contains additional rules and concepts that are most frequently used while making attacks. Visibility, of course, is a big one here. Line of sight is used to determine visibility between models. For an observing model to have line of sight, it must be possible to draw an imaginary straight line 1 millimeter wide that any part of that model to any part of the model being observed. This line is the line of sight. While doing so, other models in the observing models unit and observed models units are ignored. So again, this is more like a true line of sight. So you're going to be able to see squads. But once those models that are out in the open are destroyed, you're not going to be able to shoot at them anymore. Other models in that unit can be visible or fully visible to the observer's model as shown opposite. Note that the terrain applies additional rules to visibility, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Mortal wounds. Some attacks or rules inflict mortal wounds. We all know and love mortal wounds, right? Each time a unit suffers one or more mortal wounds, its controlling player must resolve the following sequence for each of those mortal wounds until either all of them have been inflicted or that unit is destroyed. So I don't know that a lot changed here. You're going to select a model. If a non-character model is in that unit is lost or it has lost one or more wounds, you must select that first. Then you can go to non-characters that have not been wounded, characters that have been wounded, and then characters that are not wounded. Same as before. So the interesting thing is I don't think you can take wounds or tank wounds on characters the way this is explaining it. You can't choose to take out your character. So like if you have a character with a relic shield or something like that, you couldn't take him out to, not just with mortal wounds, obviously, but you cannot take that character, tank the wounds on the relic shield if he's got an invulnerable save and like the rest of the squad doesn't. I don't know how often that happens, but that's the way I'm reading it right now. Of course, I'm sure once some stuff comes out, there'll be some clarification on that to be certain. But rules as written right now, it's going to have to go against the non-character models first. All right. Mortal wounds. When resolving attack dice, if those attacks inflict a mixture of both mortal wounds and normal damage, resolve all of the normal damage first. then resolve all the mortal wounds. Okay, so devastating wounds, you would do all your normal and then do the mortals. Makes sense. To make a hazard roll for your plasma guns, for a unit, roll dice 6. On a 1 or 2, that unit fails and suffers a mortal wound. Wow. Or 3 mortal wounds instead if each model in that unit is a monster or a vehicle. If one or more hazard rolls is required for that unit, make all those rolls simultaneously. So 1s and 2s are fails for hazard rolls, so that makes plasma guns a lot more dangerous to overcharge with. Interesting. Kind of disappointed. I run a lot of plasma guns, so more models to show off than the battle round, and I'm going to zip through this pretty quick because I don't think a whole lot's changed here. You have the start of the battle round. You have the 2 separate players' turns. Then you have the end of the battle round. And I think this is more like a just clarifying everything. So you can go through that as you want. Everything here stays the same. Only 1 wound on non-character, though. Yes, I did see that. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Only 1 wound. So with the... Let me come back up here. Make sure that I read that. For the hazard roll, yeah, suffers 1 mortal wound, or 3 mortal wounds instead if each model in that unit is a monster or vehicle model. So, right. So, yeah. So, suffers 1 mortal wound or 1 mortal wound on anything or 3 on a monster or vehicle. Right. Thank you, Jeff. So, all right. So, like I said, we had some pictures here again. On the battle, explain the battle round. Things are pretty much the same. You have the start of turn step, command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase, and then end of turn. Starting with the command phase, you gain your core CP. Both players gain 1 command point. All right, so that's the end. That's the command phase, and that's for each turn. Right? Wait. Right? Yes. So the battle round is 2 turns. Okay. Just trying to make sure 100% clear. The active player must now make battle shock rolls for each unit that fulfills 1 or both of the concerns. That unit is currently battle shocked. You can roll to resolve it, or that unit is at or below half strength. So you have to roll battle shock on that. Any command abilities would be done after that, and then your end of command phase. So any rules that trigger in your command phase would happen at that end of phase. All right. And of course, some pictures to show that. Movement. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning. You can remain stationary. You can make a normal move. You can make an advanced move. You can fall back. You can disembark move, or you can ingress move. One friendly unit has not been selected to move yet. You can select that unit. You can select a unit on the battlefield in strategic reserve or embarked into transport, and that unit is selected to move. And then it's the end of the movement phase. Pretty cut and dry. Remain stationary. So these couple things that we talked about, to remain stationary, no models in the unit are moved either in a straight line or rotated. Units that remain stationary do not trigger any rules that are triggered when a unit starts or ends a move. So no Overwatch on a unit that remains stationary. Yeah, okay. I always think it's weird because I think that infantry should be able to pivot or rotate just for a better look on the battlefield. Not that I actually want to move the model, just that I'm going to be shooting over here. Let's shoot over here. Let's turn the guy so he's facing his gun over there. That's just a weird thing with me, though. But I can keep them still because it really doesn't matter. There's 360 fire arcs. Normal move is if your units on the battlefield and unengaged, your unit moves described in the moving phase, and after movement, you must remain unengaged. Advanced move. If your unit is on the battlefield, unengaged, your movement can move as described in moving. And before movement, you make an advance roll by rolling a dice 6. Therefore, you would move your normal move plus the dice 6. And everybody that's played is used to that now. Of course, the caveat to that is you must still be unengaged until the end of the turn, unless otherwise stated. Your unit is not eligible to declare charge or start an action. So if you run, you can't do fancy stuff. If you fall back, and this is, of course, you have to start in engagement range. Your move is described as normal moves. So just to clear that up, you select fallback. So there's two types of fallbacks. You can do an ordered retreat or a desperate escape. So an ordered retreat, if your unit is not battle shocked, you can select this mode, in which case you would just move out of combat. You are not eligible to shoot, declare charge, or start an action. Or you can do a desperate escape. So if you are battle shocked, you can choose to move away, but you have to make a hazard roll for each model in the unit. Each model that is moved can be moved through enemy units if you're doing a desperate escape. So if you're completely surrounded, you have to do a desperate escape. And then if at the end, after you've moved out of combat, you must make a battle shock test for that unit after the desperate escape. So if you're surrounded, and let's say you get your 20-man blood call pack that completely surrounded your 10 guardsmen, but for some reason did not kill them all, it could happen. You could fall back. You could make a desperate escape with your guardsmen, but you have to make a hazard roll for each model, and then you have to roll battle shock tests at the end of it, if you're not already battle shocked. So shooting phase, some things have changed here. So they definitely changed some of the wording in here. I thought you'd like that. Active player shoots with the eligible unit at that time using the sequence below. So normal shooting stuff. If you're eligible to shoot, a unit is eligible to shoot if it's on the battlefield and has not already been selected to shoot this phase. So you can't shoot twice in a turn. You select one friendly unit that is eligible to shoot, and that unit is selected to shoot. Okay, I'm going to shoot with them. Okay. So then you're going to choose normal shooting, assault shooting, or close quarter shooting, or indirect shooting. So there are essentially 4 different fire modes. I think is the best way to explain this. Normal shooting is you're unengaged. You did not make an advanced move. Your unit shoots as described in the make shooting. and then until the end of your phase, your unit is not eligible to start an action. So if you shoot, you can't do an action. Assault shooting. So if all of your units, all the following apply to this unit: you're unengaged, you made an assault move, and you have a weapon with the assault keyword. You can shoot as described in the making attacks. You can only select assault weapons to shoot with. So if you have a squad that has like a heavy weapon and then the rest are assault weapons, you can only fire the assault weapons. I think most of us know that, but just for good measure. And then, of course, again, you're not eligible to do an action after you shot with your assault weapons. Close quarter shootings. So this is if you're engaged and did not make an advance move this turn. I'm kind of wondering how that would work, but I guess there could be like a countercharge rule somewhere in here that we just haven't gotten to. But so, course, close quarter shootings. If you're engaged and did not make an advance move this turn, and have any close quarters keyword weapons, or if you're a monster or a vehicle, you can do this. So just like before, if you're a monster or a tank, you can fire into close combat. That's fine. But just to clarify, the model in this unit can target enemy units your unit is engaged with. So if you're a monster or vehicle, each time a monster vehicle model in this unit attacks, unless that attack is made with close quarter weapons and targets your unit engaged with, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. If it is made with blast weapons, it still cannot target a unit you are engaged with. A non-monster, non-vehicle model with close quarters can shoot the units it's engaged with. Pretty simple. I'm assuming close quarters are going to be like pistols. They just probably changed the keyword there. And I'm okay with that. I'd like to see what else falls into that category, but I'm sure that'll come up as rules come out. And I know there's a lot of data sheets that are out there. I'm not really going to go over that at this point. This is long enough at this point. So indirect shooting. Indirect shooting is I think that's the last mode of fire. All these things have to apply. You have to be unengaged, not advanced, and you have to have the indirect keyword weapon. So you can shoot to anything that is visible. I'm sorry. Indirect weapons can target units that are not visible to the attacker. And each time you fire an indirect weapon that makes an attack, the target has the benefit of cover automatically. You cannot reroll hit rolls. An unmodified hit roll of 1 through 5 fails unless your unit remains stationary. So anything with this indirect rule, you want that thing to sit still, or you can shoot at something, but it's going to be really hard to hit. So again, I don't have any real solid because I haven't gone through all the units yet, but I'm sure like your manticores, your basilisks, your whirlwinds, your whatever, they're all going to have that indirect fire. Night spinners for the Eldar players, stuff like that. They're all going to have that indirect fire. Hive Guard. Sorry, Hive Guard for the Tyranids have indirect fire. So on and so forth. And then, of course, after you fire, you cannot start an action. Charge phase is after that. So basically, active player resolves a charge with their eligible units. They declare the charge. Select one friendly unit that has not declared a charge. Obviously, you cannot declare a charge with something that is already charged. That eligible user is eligible to declare charge if it's on the battlefield, unless otherwise stated. Here are some rules that prevent a unit from being eligible to charge. So if it's not within 12 inches of one or more enemy units, it cannot charge. If it's already engaged, it cannot charge. If it has made an advance or fallback move, it cannot charge. Then you make your charge roll, 2 dice 6, just like it was last time, and that's the maximum distance for the charge move. If it's possible to make a charge move, and if you still want to make a charge move with that unit, otherwise your unit does not make the charge move. In either case, the charge is resolved. So basically, you declare who you're charging with a unit, make your die roll, and then move the models, and then move to the next unit, and then resolve that one. Charge moves are all kind of the same. If your unit, yada, yada, yada. Each model must end its move closer to one or more of the charged targets. Each model that can end its move within 1 inch or more of the target must do so. And each model that can end its move engaged with one or more charged targets must do so. So, excuse me 1 second here. All right. Obviously, at the end of the charge, your unit must be engaged, or it didn't make it. Your unit cannot be engaged with one or more enemy units. They are not that are not charged targets. And until the end of the turn, each model in your unit has the fights first ability. Jeff puts in here, if you notice, no longer says you have to declare a target before rolling the charge. The charge target. It does say it is eligible to declare a charge if it's on the battlefield to prevent. It's not within 12 inches. It's not declared a charge. Just double checking. Yeah, you're right. It does not say you have to declare which unit you're charging, just which unit you're charging with. So that's kind of cool. So, but you have to have at least one unit that you're eligible to charge. Good call there. I kind of missed that. And of course, they have diagrams as to how to charge. Fight phase. Rules that are triggered at the start of the fight phase are resolved. Yeah, charge roll, then pick. Then pick is what I've heard. That makes sense. But you do have to start within the 12 inches of a unit just to try. Yeah, I think you're very much right on that. Okay, so fight phase. We're going to do pile-in moves like we did before. Let's see. If you're engaged, if you made a charge move, or it was selected to make an overrun fight this phase, you can do a pile-in phase. Pile-in move, sorry. Your unit is described as moving. If your unit is engaged, select every enemy unit is engaged with. Otherwise, select one or more enemy units within 5 inches of your unit. Wall moving. Models in base contact with one or more enemy models cannot be moved. Okay. Which is an interesting call out because I don't think that was in last edition. I think you had to stay combat with that unit. I don't know that you actually you could not move the model that's in base contact. Each model that is moved must end its move closer to the closest pile-in target and engaged with if possible. So that's a little clarified there. Each model that is moved must end its move closer to the closest pile-in target. So that means you do have to move to the closest target. You can't choose to move your pile-in 3 inches away towards another unit or something like that. And your unit must be engaged after moving, and each model that started this move engaged with an enemy unit must still be engaged with that enemy unit. So that there's kind of important too. Each model that started this move engaged with an enemy unit must still be engaged with that enemy unit. So you can't really pile into another unit. And then we get some diagrams, and we're going to fight. Excuse me. If a unit is eligible to fight and it has not already been selected to fight, then you can fight, obviously. If it's engaged or was engaged at the start of the step, or if it made a charge phase. Okay. Resolve your fights first. Now, of course, units that charge automatically gains fights first. So you start with the player whose turn it is. Players alternate selecting one friendly fights first unit that is eligible to fight. That unit is selected to fight. If this is not possible, see below. If there are no fights first units that are eligible to fight, move to resolve remaining combat steps where this player will select their next unit. Otherwise, other player will select their next unit. So starting with the player who moved this sequence onto this step, players alternate selecting one friendly unit that is eligible to fight. That unit is selected to fight. If this is not possible, in other words, if there are no units that are eligible to fight, the fight step ends. Otherwise, other players select their next unit. So basically, just keep fighting until either the unit's wiped out or everybody has done their attacks. So there are two types of fight phases or fight types. There are normal fights where you fight, your unit fights as described in the making tax, or there's an overrun fight. So which is eligible if your unit is unengaged or was unengaged at the start of the fight step, but became engaged during the fight phase. Your unit can make one additional pile-in move, then fight as described. So if you get overrun, you can do a pile-in, and then you get to fight. Interesting. And of course, there's diagrams for that. And then, of course, at the end, 3-inch consolidation at the end of the movement phase. And they're very clear on that, whether it's an ongoing consolidation, an engaging consolidation, or an objective consolidation. So if your unit is in the fight phase and your unit was eligible to fight this phase, so if you did fight or could have fought, you can make a consolidation move. So your ongoing consolidation is if your unit is engaged, you must select this mode and select every unit it is engaged with, in which you would move your models in base contact with one or more of the enemy units that cannot be moved. Each model that is moved must end its move closer to the closest selected enemy unit and engaged with it if possible. Okay, so that's pretty clear. If you're in a fight, you're going to pile basically a second pile in with your ongoing consolidation. Your engaging consolidation. So if your unit is within 3 inches of one or more enemy units, you must select this mode and select one or more of those enemy units. Each model that is moved must end its move closer to the closest selected enemy unit and engaged with it if possible. So this is how you would move into other units. And then, of course, your unit must be engaged with all of the selected enemy units if one or more enemy units engaged with it. So basically, that's your encompassing melee. And then, of course, your other consolidation would be if your unit is within 3 inches of one or more objectives, you must select this mode and select one of the objectives. You obviously would move those 3 inches towards the objective to try to claim it. So very clear consolidation rules. And then, of course, they have diagrams for those, some more artwork. Now, they're going to get into placing terrain, and I'm going to kind of skip over some of this. The terrain categories are kind of important. They basically have a couple different categories. You have exposed terrain, which is your crates, your razor wires, your scattered debris across the table. And we'll get into more of that later. Your light terrain, which is your barricades, low walls, statuary, stuff like that. And then the dense terrain, which is your buildings, your ruin, your armored container, and your woods. And I agree with that. The core rules so far are actually pretty solid and pretty clear, which is an amazing step up for them. Everything seems to be very clear. I have not found anything that I've questioned yet. Again, I'm still kind of going through everything specifically. So your terrain types that we're talking about, your exposed or light, you can move horizontally or vertically through the through exposed or light terrain. Dense terrain is where movement becomes different or difficult. I don't want to say difficult because difficult terrain was a thing. So infantry can move into dense terrain. They can move horizontally through it. Infantry beasts, that's infantry beast swarms and mobile models can move horizontally through dense terrain. Infantry beast swarms can move vertically through dense terrain features. Other models can move horizontally through dense terrain, provided that all sections of the terrain feature that the model's base would be moving through is 2 inches or less in height. So your edges of the ruins, stuff like that, you could probably walk over, but you can't really hide like a monster in the ruins. So moving vertically, models must remain within a half-inch horizontally of that terrain feature and add the distance vertically up to your distance moved. Setting up or ending a move, and they explain how you move through terrain. And then we got some more images here. So terrain and visibility, and this is where some of the things certainly change. Each time a range attack targets a unit. Sorry, I want to use the right terminology here. If every model in that unit meets one of the more following conditions, that has the benefit of cover. So I just want to take a quick break here. I do appreciate the way they word all the rules in here, and Jeff there said very clearly, everything looks pretty solid. I do like that they're using like exclusionary terminology. So in other words, you can do this only if it fits this parameter. So interesting way of saying of doing the rule book, but I really appreciate it because it really makes basically if it fits this, you're allowed to do this. If it doesn't fit this, doesn't matter how it doesn't fit in, it doesn't fit in. And I certainly appreciate the way they wrote that. So the benefits cover each time a ranged attack targets a unit, if every model in that unit meets one or more of the following conditions, that unit has the benefits cover. That model has a infantry beast swarm keyword and is in a terrain area. And of course, most of us have seen the terrain bases that they put up months ago at this point. So they have very well described terrain areas. There has been quite a few sellers online that are selling bases for your ruins and stuff like that. Okay. He does say, notice the worsen the ballistic skill of that attack by 1, not -1 to hit. Very true. Very, very true. So where was I? So yeah, so if you're beast and you're in a terrain area, or that model is not visible to the attacking player due to one or more intervening terrain features and or one or more obscuring terrain areas, each time a ranged attack targets a unit with the benefits of cover, worsens the ballistic skill of the attack by 1. Yeah, so that's what Jeff was just talking about. They were very clear that they worsened the ballistic skill by 1, and not a -1 to hit. And again, I like the way they did that. That was a lot more clear to how that works. All models hidden while a model is hidden while all the following apply. It's a infantry beast swarm keyword that is within a terrain feature that contains one or more dense features. So anything that's a dense terrain feature will give you that hidden, as long as that model did not make one or more ranged attacks during this turn or during the previous turn. Okay, so you could literally hide on an objective in a piece of terrain and just stand there and not shoot, and you can't be shot at unless you're within detection range, which is 15 inches. So while a model is hidden, it can only be visible to enemy models that are within detection range. Obscuring. So obscuring, of course, is terrain areas containing one or more, which is light or dense terrain features, are obscuring terrain features. In every line of sight drawn between two models crosses one or more of the obscuring terrains. Those two models are not visible to each other. So if you have obscuring models in between, even if you can draw a line of sight, you cannot see them. That's going to be a big thing that tournament organizers are definitely going to have to call out, because of the line of sight there. Just my thought. I think we're going to have probably some terrain that are going to be definitely more covered up and more solid because of that. Solid, being the next one, is a dense terrain feature that have the solid rule. Line of sight cannot be drawn across any enclosed gap in the surface, such as terrain that is 3 inches or less from the ground. Okay, so that's kind of what I was talking about. There's just an actual description off that. Couple more diagrams tell you how you're doing, or what you're doing, not how you're doing. I know you're doing good. Terrain objectives. So I do like that they are moving some of the objectives into the terrain features. They're going to make them more realistic places to grab objectives. I like that. So if your mission uses objectives, they are located on the battlefield, and they'll get into battlefields later on. Your level of control. At the start of the battle, no objective is on the battlefield is controlled by either player. To gain control of an objective, a player will need one or more models, with an OC characteristic of 1 within range of it. So you have to have somebody that can control an objective to gain an objective. It's pretty obvious. And then a model that is within a terrain objective while it is within the terrain area. So anything, if an objective is in a terrain square or template, that's considered within the terrain, within the objective. The objective, controlling the objective. All right, so at the end of each phase and turn to determine a player's level of control over an objective and add together the OC characteristics of all the models in the player's army that is within range of the objective. Player with the highest level of control over that objective gains control of the objective. If they have the same, unless the objective is secured, that objective is not controlled by either player. Now we go into secured objectives, which of course is some rules allow an objective to be secured by a player's army. When the objective is secured by a player's army, that objective remains under the control even once they no longer have any units that are within range of it. We all know what this is. This is sticky objectives. So if you got your cultists or your intercessors or whatever that have objective secured on there, or whatever sticky objective rule, sticky objectives. All right, some more diagrams, and we're going to go through this real quick. Quick stratagems, basically same kind of thing. You spend CP, you buy a stratagem. Now the restrictions on this are going to be more specific on detachments. So of course, both players can use stratagems. Each stratagem states how many CP it costs, when it can be used, what units are target, what its effective is, and the restrictions. So you're going to go off all the rules. All the rules are written into the stratagems. They do have basically how to do it, and then of course there's core stratagems which can be found in the codexes, additional codexes and whatnot. And there's an example of heroic intervention, and most of us have used that at least once over the last edition. So that's how that works. Couple of the ones that we remember: command reroll. They did explosives. I think that's just to replace grenades. Crushing impact, which is your tank shock. Epic challenge is the same. Insane bravery. And again, you can read through all these. Fire overwatch, rapid ingress. All good. Actions, real quick. Actions. Everything in the action is explained as it goes. You can find, can be found in other publications such as when it started, which units can perform it, how many times you can use it, when it completes, everything's there. Starting an action, obviously you have to be eligible to start an action. You can't start an action if you're not on the battlefield, if you're battle shocked, if you're an aircraft or fortification, if you have an OC of 0 or dash, if you're engaged, unless you're Titanic, if you made an advance or a fallback, or if it's you start another action. If a unit starts an action until the end of the turn, it is not eligible to shoot, is not eligible to declare charge, and so on and so forth. And of course, you have to do what you need to do to complete your objectives. In this case, starts in your shooting phase. It has to be an infantry once per turn. It ends at the end of the turn, and you set up a marker within the terrain area. So we got some more battle things, pictures. Whew, words are starting. I got to end this soon. I think the words are getting to me. So advanced rules, monsters, and vehicles. Some models do not have a base. They're a frame. So that's pretty obvious. You rotate the frame models as part of the move. You find the central axis and turn it there instead of the middle of the base. Because if it doesn't have a base, then you can't turn it in the center. In the center of the base. Shooting at engaged monsters or vehicles. If your shooting phase, enemy vehicles and monsters that are engaged can be selected as targets of ranged attacks. Each time a model makes a ranged attack that targets a unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll, excluding attacks made from close quarters weapons by models in a unit that are engaged with the target. So you have to be engaged with it in order to shoot it, and you do have -1 unless you have close quarter weapons. Yes. Yeah, Jeff says, so there is a -1 to hit and -1 to ballistic skill. And obviously, I think in every aspect that I've seen so far, they are stackable. And then we have transports. Transport capacity listed on the transport. That hasn't changed. If you want to get into it, once the first battle round has started, a friendly unit can embark on a friendly transport model after making a normal, advance, or fallback move if all the following conditions apply. So that whole unit must be within 3 inches of the transport. That unit was not set up on the battlefield this turn. The unit is eligible to embark within the transport, and that transport has sufficient remaining transport capacity. Obvious. Disembarking. In the active player's movement phase, each friendly unit embarked in a transport can disembark, making a disembark move. Okay, I was looking for specific rules, but it's not there yet. If a transport model is destroyed before removing it from the battlefield, the active player must make an emergency disembark move. That says see opposite with the unit inside. And okay, so there's a lot here, just so you know. Rapid or tactical disembark is 3 inches. Combat disembark is 6 inches. So they break this all down here. I'm not going to go over all this. Take a look at it, read it. Emergency disembarkation is the same. Basically, if your transport's destroyed, you have to make a hazard roll for each model within. And then you get to move within 6 inches of the hulk of it. Forming attached units. So you could have leader or support units. Support units are obviously new ones. Before the battle in the muster army steps, for each leader and support unit in your army, you can select one friendly bodyguard that unit can lead. That unit will then lead that bodyguard for the battle and form an attached unit with it. So character, bodyguard, in your unit. Unless otherwise stated, each bodyguard unit can only have one leader and one support unit attached to it. So that's very clear. You can have one leader, one support unit. Attacking attached units, and I think they pretty much leveled this out in the beginning. You would obviously... Oh no, hold on. I got ahead of myself. It says each time an attack that targeted attached unit, if that unit contains one or more bodyguard models, use the highest toughness characteristic of the bodyguard model in that unit while resolving that attack, even if leader or support unit of the attached unit has a different toughness characteristic. If that unit only contains a leader support model, the highest toughness characteristic of those models will resolve first instead. So first thing that comes to mind if you have a unit with an ogre and bodyguard in there, and I don't know if he's a support or not, but I would think so. Let's say you have a commissar, ogre and bodyguard, and then guardsman. And I don't know if this is eligible. I haven't actually looked it up, but if you could do that, obviously the ogre and bodyguard would be the first one to take any of the wounds in that unit. Higher toughness. They go over some of the keywords in attached units. Leader, support unit, bodyguard unit, specific model, yada, yada, yada. Then we go into stratagems. Strategic reserves. Obviously, the big thing in strategic reserves that are in here is deep strike. You can bring strategic reserves. Oh, and you can bring half of your army in as strategic reserves. I guess I should have put that in here somewhere. All right, I think that's in here. I guess this is the important thing. Your setup distance is 6 inches from regular strategic. Okay, this is just strategic reserves. You make an ingress move, which means you set up 6 inches from the battlefield edge, as described in the setup. While moving, you have to be wholly within that, and if one or more of your battlefield edges and more than 8 inches horizontally from all enemy units. So everything with strategic reserves is now more than 8 inches from the enemy. And of course, that's a big, for a deep strike melee army, that's a big deal. And then flying and surging. So some rules, surge moves is a new thing. As stated in the rules following type, the rules for the move type has been triggered. Your unit's not battle shocked. Your unit is unengaged, and it has not moved. Your unit moves as described in moving. Before moving, you select to make a surge. The closest enemy unit to be the surge target. Each model. Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. So this is just like a surge move, like world leaders have, something like that. All right. So no big deal. That has not changed. I thought it was something different. Flying models. They go into flying models, and again, flying models are still on the low at this point. Maybe something will change with them. I hope so. Just because I have a lot of flyers that I would love to put on the battlefield and make them worthwhile. And then let's see, real quick. Aura abilities is you can only be affected by more. You can be affected by more than one aura ability at a time. But if a unit is with range the same aura ability more than once, it only applies once. Faction abilities. Psychic abilities. So psychic abilities, if a psychic ability causes a model to lose one or more wounds, each of those wounds is said to be inflicted by a psychic attack. So and then they say it can be important under something else. Warrior abilities, plunging fire. So each time a model makes a ranged attack that targets a visible unit containing one or more models on ground level, if one or more of the following conditions apply, improve the ballistic skill of that attack by 1. The attacking model is on a section of a terrain feature that is 3 inches or more in height, and the attacking model has the towering keyword, and the target unit is within 12 inches. Okay, so that makes sense. And they go into aircraft. I'm not going to bother with just now. We can always revisit that. So, and then there's the reference. I'm not going to go over that as well. I think they go into some of the abilities, blasts, and stuff like that. So, well, actually, let's do this real quick. Anti is your anti-ability, like your anti-vehicle, anti-psyker, so on and so forth. So an unmodified wound rule of Y is a critical wound. So they are going to have an anti-XY, in other words, an anti-vehicle 4 up, anti-psyker 2 up. Your assault weapons are weapons you can shoot during assaulting. Blast. Each time you have an attack, so blast 2. So that, yeah, they changed blast so that it has a reference number instead of just blast is adding 1 to the unit. Each time you gather attack dice for a blast weapon, add 1 additional attack dice for every 5 models that were in the target unit in the select target step, rounding down. If this ability takes the form of blast X, you gather that many. So you have the possibility of having more blast weapons. Cleave is a new one, which is essentially, let's read it through here real quick. The ability takes the form of Cleave X each time you gather attack dice for a Cleave weapon. If you've selected 1 target for all of your weapons attacks, add X additional attack dice for every 5 models. So it's essentially blast, but in melee. Close quarters, of course, we went into that in shooting. Deadly Demise is pretty much the same. Stuff dies. Deep Strike allows you to make an ingress move. We went over that. The big thing, of course, is the 8-inch horizontally from enemy units. Devastating Wounds. Weapon results in a critical wound if that attack ends, equal to the D characteristic. So kind of the same thing, but you can have devastating wounds 2, 3, whatever. Extra attacks, same thing. If you get different melee weapons, you can attack with different things. Firing deck is the same thing. You have firing deck X, so if you have firing deck 6, you can fire 6 shots out of there. Feel No Pain X plus is Feel No Pain. Each time a model with this ability would lose a wound, roll a dice 6. On an X plus, the wound is not lost. Fights first. While every model in this unit ability, this unit has fights first. You can go back to the resolve first combat steps. Hazardous, we went over that already. Heavy, so you do add 1 to the hit roll if all the following units apply. There's still hover. Infiltrators, which gives you, during deployment, if every model in this has the ability, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 8 inches horizontally for your opponent's deployment zone and all enemy units. Lance is pretty much the same. You add +1 to the wound roll in the turn that you charge. Leader goes with attached units. We got that. Lethal hits is critical hit. You can choose to attack, automatically wound the target. Indirect fire, we went over that as well. So a lot of this is kind of whatever at this point. If this ability, all right, so Lone operative. Unless part of an attached unit, this unit is not visible to enemy models unless they are within 12 inches of this unit and cannot be targeted by direct fire or indirect fire weapons unless they're within 12 inches. If it takes the form of lone op X, X being a number, obviously, unless part of an attached unit, it just changes the range. Each enemy one shot means you get one shot in the battlefield. So there is still a pistol. Pistols in close quarters are identical for all rules purposes. See close quarters. So pistols are close quarter combats weapons. Pistols in close quarters are all the same. So they're all the same kind of weapon. Melta, not much has changed there. Precision, you can pick out characters. Scouts, same thing, you can scout move. If that unit is in strategic reserves, you can set them up anywhere wholly within deployment zone. Psychic is psychic, and you ignore all modifiers to ballistic and weapon skill. I like that. As a Thousand Suns player, of course I like that. Rapid fire is rapid fire. Stealth gives you the benefit of cover. Sustained hits, pretty much the same thing as it was last edition. Support is that new unit type, and of course we'll look into that later on as we move forward. Super heavy walkers, of course, are your big tanky things, knights, so on and so forth. Each time unit with this ability makes a normal advance or fallback move, they can move through models, and of course they can go over terrain features that are 4 inches or less. And before moving that unit, you can select all models in that unit to have the mobile keyword. Twin linked is you can reroll the wound roll, as always. Torrent, attacks automatically hit. So that's pretty much it. That's the long and the short of the whole thing. I know it's a lot longer than I expected to be running on this thing. But we did go through all the rules, and I really appreciate everybody that kind of hung in here and watched the whole thing. 88 pages of rules, even with pictures, it just takes some time to get through everything. So anybody that did watch, of course, it's Wednesday. On Saturday is the pre-order date. So if you want to get your new box set, you want to definitely get in on it soon. Or, make sure you order it on Saturday. There's talk that there's only so many out there in existence. I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with Leviathan. So if you go to the hobby stores now, you can still find Leviathan on the shelf, even though there was only supposed to be so many of those made. Well, maybe they're taking them down now, but last time I checked, there was still some on the shelf. So that's it for me today. I know it's been a little longer. I don't really like to do super long videos, but I wanted to get through everything that's in that rule set. And of course, as we move forward, once I get the box in my hands, we're going to do videos of the models and stuff like that as we move forward. So look forward to that. Other than that, remember, if you're interested in Star Wars stuff, you can find me on Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy. You can find me at Lake Clan Legends playing Dungeons and Dragons with my boys, or you can find me here every Thursday night, either painting or talking to you about Warhammer 40K. So thanks everybody for watching. If there is anything that you want me to cover, or if you have any questions or tips or tricks or anything like that, please leave a comment. I try to respond to every comment that I get. I am still working on some of the shorts, trying to get them out there because I know they build a little more influence and get the word out. But remember, if you like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that leads to the algorithm kind of putting it out there just a little bit more. So that's it for me for tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope you have such an amazing day.